All rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Call the meeting to order with a determination of quorum by going through roll call. Counselor Baumgartner, Ebers.
Here.
Ebers, can you disclose where you're joining us from today?
I am at the Homewood Inn and Suites in what is it? Sheffield, Connecticut.
Fancy. Ferguson is absent. I am here. Patterness. Here. We do have a quorum, and we'll call the meeting to order. Move down into the public forum part of the meeting. So this is the time where members of the public are welcome to come forward and address council. Speaking time will be limited to 3 minutes. If you do come forward to address council, we ask that you provide your name for the meeting record. If the matter, takes longer than 3 minutes to settle, obviously we'll be happy to provide you with information and access to staff to help you with your needs. So yeah, if anybody is from the public to participate in the public forum, please come forward. Not seeing any, so we'll close down the public forum portion of the meeting and move on to the setting of the agenda. You've all had a chance to check the agenda out. Can I get a motion to approve it?
Moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Baumgartner, seconded by Patterness to approve tonight's agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, agenda has been approved as written. Move down to the consent agenda here. Consent agenda includes the meeting minutes of May 20, a resolution 55 setting a public hearing on June 17th for the proposed vacation of a utility easement, electric department purchase order, 2024 seal coat contract, contract to migrate from an Exchange server to Microsoft Office 365, AIA document B132-2019, the agreement between owner and architect, May disbursements, resolution 56, the authorization of employment of Kim Watson as a part-time clerk at the Olivia Liquor Store. Call for a meeting to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Patterness, seconded by Baumgartner to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll have to do roll call to approve this. So Counselor Baumgartner,
Aye.
Ebers,
Aye.
and Patterness.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved as written. We'll move into discussion items. Discussion item 5A is a public hearing to vacate the alley. So this is the time when members of the public who came to talk about vacating this alley over here for the City Hall Fire Hall project. It's time for us to recess the meeting and open the public hearing regarding that matter. We'll begin with staff reports.
So this is part of the City Hall Public Safety Building project. And as part of that project, the proposed plan that predates me was to expand the fire hall 40 feet east across the alley that is currently there. We cannot build on an alley without vacating it. And then when you vacate an alley, half the alley goes to the property owners on the west and half goes on the east. So we've entered into a purchase agreement with the two property owners who own the eastern part of the north half of the alley. They've signed it. And so once it's vacated, we'll work to purchase those portions and then we will officially be able to build on those portions. Did I miss anything? Okay.
If anybody has questions about the process after, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. All right, so if anybody from the public is here to comment on this matter, now is your time to move forward. If you do come forward, we ask that you state your name for the meeting record. Seeing no participants, we'll move off of the public comment portion of this business and reopen the regular meeting with a resolution. Resolution 57 would be the vacation of portions of the alley next to City Hall for the City Hall public emergency services project. So I'll call for a motion to approve resolution 57.
Second.
Motion's been made by Baumgartner, seconded by Patterness to approve resolution 57. We'll move forward with voting via roll call vote. Counselor Baumgartner,
Aye.
Ebers,
Aye.
Patterness,
Aye. Yourself.
and I'm a yes as well.
We need
Uh, Okay. All right, so resolution 57 it carries. Moving forward on discussion item C, Brad Fruth, is that right? Is here from Beck's to talk to us about the goings on there, kind of by the corner of 212 and 71. We're looking at potential utility services out there and developing a strategy to execute that. Thank you, Brad.
George, the handout is exactly what's in the council packet for this item.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for agreeing to speak with us this evening. My name is Brad Fruth. I work at Beck's Hybrids. As the mayor said, we have purchased a piece of property almost 2 years ago, right off of Highway 71 on the west side, right across from the railroad tracks there. We've had a great time being a citizen here in Olivia, and our farmers have been very, very good to us. And so we're having the need to expand our warehousing capability that we have from in town. We've also purchased a bunch of farm ground there. One of the things that we have at Beck's Hybrids is called our Practical Farm Research Program, where we do agronomic and research testing. So you might have seen the planter out there. It wasn't out there today, or it needed a couple of floater tires on her, but we have a couple of plots in there. So there's going to be a bunch of research testing there, as well as potential for sales and distribution. It is, I think I put in your packet here, it's a proposed about a $25 million capital project. We're looking at adding full-time jobs, retaining all the jobs that we currently have in town. Our research folks will actually stay in town. We're not going to vacate that facility. It's going to be in addition to that. I provided a artist rendering there from some drone aerial footage of what we're looking at there. So a little more than just a pole barn. And then the third page that I provided to you was from our civil of where that parcel would basically be placed. The current zoning does not allow this in Renville County, so that's why we're going to have to split off that piece of parcel for the building site there and get that rezoned. The kind of the discussion that we've been having with the mayor and with Elizabeth was we are asking to hook up to city water service. We've had our civil through the state of Minnesota, and they're asking for us to have a sizable amount of water available for fire protection. And so I believe you have a 300,000 gallon water tank here. The state of Minnesota says we need 350,000 gallons of water if there were to be a fire at that facility there. So that's driving the ask to potentially look at being a water customer. It would obviously be used in the event of a major fire. Our use of water at the facility, other than that, is a couple restrooms and a kitchen. No irrigation, no, general ag use there. So we are going to be situated there along Highway 71. We've been working with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. There is one entrance that they're allowing on that road, which is why you see the sliver has to kind of go a little further north there, because engineering will not allow us to move that entrance. It is not the entrance that's there today, by the way, if you drive by there. And so that's why that's situated there. So, so that's a little bit about our project there. We're gonna look at, a traditional septic system for the bathrooms. We worked with Susie and some folks on a quote on sewer, and it was way more money than what the effort was there. Obviously, we're sitting along a state road, so no city roads or infrastructure there. We did get a cost estimate. Susie did, I believe, on the cost to extend water. I have that. Yep. So the cost to extend water there is estimated with a contingency about $364,630. And so our discussion with the mayor is to ask the city council if you guys would be open to us being a wholesale water customer. We would pay for all of the installation of that so that the city is not putting out any money or not going to be at risk on that. So that's the general overview of what we have for you. Would love to take questions or comments or.
If we run the water line out to the building there, who's responsible for maintenance?
Yep. So it's our understanding from civil that wherever the meter would be placed, then the city would be responsible for maintenance up to the meter. And then we would be in charge of everything that happens post meter. If I understand too, so despite all the storage, we're still going to have to put underground storage in for fire protection. So there will basically be post the meter, there will be a line that runs to the fire protection underground, and then there will be a potable line that'll run up to the building there. So I believe the discussion that we had too was that upon filling this underground tank, there has to be coordination with the city on that. We don't want to drain your water tank in one day. So 200,000 gallons is what we have to put underground. So.
And then is that just because like our water tower is too small or what?
It's because of the size of the facility and what the state of Minnesota says that we have to have available. The entire facility has to be sprinkled. And so it's about 90,000 square foot of sprinkled. So we would, love to entertain ideas to not have to do that in the whole unfinished area. But I believe that the state of Minnesota is going to require that we do the entire facility.
We get our marching orders from the state, so.
Yes, sir.
The water tower holds 300,000 gallons.
Yep.
And had it been 350, it would have been enough?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Nope.
No, I don't understand all these things.
Yep.
It's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water.
Yep.
Any other questions for Brad?
Well, yeah, I mean, your ask is to have this, I have a concern, because first of all, awesome you guys are building out there, love having you in town, like, there's nothing about this that isn't, at the end of the day, good, right, from my point of view. But there are some concerns I have, because you're not in the city, right? And, I'll just be honest with you. I feel it's hard for me to want to give utilities in the city to a customer who's not in the city. And primarily because it sets a precedent where then we can have someone else build right outside the city limits and say, oh, can you just give us some water, whatever. And so what we do here now is going to be reflected in the future. And so from that point of view, I would like to work with you in, the most palms up, let's find a way to do this, to get you guys annexed in to the city, and then we can provide the water. We can talk about how the costs come down, how the taxes are. We can talk about all the angles, right? It's about money at the end of the day for you guys. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and what I would want to do. So I'm, you know, but I am here for the city, and it seems a little bit wrong for us to supply water without having you be in the city. And in that regard, then we would supply you with electricity as well.
So what kind of creative problem solving can we come up with to?
Well, what concerns would you have about being annexed?
Yeah, so the estimate that we got back from the county is that if we become a part of the city, it'll increase our tax bill by $105,000 per year.
Yep.
So that's where, you know, the benefit of when we, you know, water is the main draw, and I'm gonna pay all the infrastructure to bring that in, that's a pretty hefty increase from staying in the county.
Right. And then, I mean, it's also true that you get other services from the city, like the fire protection that we cover, the townships and all of that stuff too. And, you know, that would be I mean, that's a big building, and we would definitely respond and do our part and all this kind of stuff. But under the way it's structured now, you're not really contributing to helping us with the cost for what it takes to maintain a fire department, which is way more than I would have guessed. And we're expanding this building here to try to keep our level of readiness and safety, you know, good enough. And we have a great fire department, and we invest in it and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm kind of coming at it from that too. Like, how can we work together to, maybe there's something we can do because $100,000, maybe, you know, given the situation that we're in, is something we should look at, talk about. How do I get you annexed and have you be happy to be there? That's where I'm trying to, that's the goal for me.
I had a question for you, maybe. Pardon me for not being prepared with this information, but when you worked with the county to get your property tax estimate, was that for the entire parcel, or was that just for the building site?
That was just for the building site. Yep.
Because you are parceling it off. That was news. I didn't know that that was happening.
Yeah, we have to do that in order to do a rezone, no matter if we're in the township or we're in the city. It's currently zoned, I think, urban expansion, if I'm not mistaken. And so the other thing is the classification of our business is an odd thing. No one knows what to do with it. Are we ag? Are we manufacturing? What are we?
Right.
And so I believe it was an industrial. Don't quote me on that, but I think the discussion with Susie and the county would be that would be an industrial use. So.
Yeah, and you know, I was talking with people in my company too, and we had a situation where they wanted to get utilities, sewer and stuff to a building, and Wilmer was like, absolutely, but you're going to be annexed. So it's like, that's the natural way things are done in a city, is you annex the property and then you provide the services, right? So I am trying, I want to appeal to your better angels, you know, as a good member of the community, to work with us and find a way to do this. There is tax abatement opportunities that we can look at. The maximum period of time you can do a tax abatement would be 15 years. Like, I'm just kind of putting it out there because I think that's the only way we can maybe come to an agreement, because I do want to provide you water, but if we do that, I want it annexed.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so, you know, we obviously have very similar, you know, interests here, but just taking a look at the future and how we can work with you and other businesses who might be looking to invest in our community here, we should maybe explore some other tools like that, something to still encourage you to develop in our community and soften the blow of those property taxes, if at least for a period of time anyway.
Do we have any other customers that we have outside of city limits we provide water to?
Yes, we do.
You do, most of them are residences, I believe, not additional businesses. Some of them are private water lines. I am not certain I'm not certain what conversations happened in regards to the city and those private water lines. And it was mentioned in our comprehensive plan for our annexation plan that the recommendation would be to annex the parcels that are being served by city infrastructure as kind of the short-term priority to keep those practices, to kind of curb those practices.
How many do we have?
I don't have that exact number.
Yeah, but that,
I think the
Uh,
estimate was less than 20.
Yeah, less than 20.
but that's definitely something that is on my list now of things to look at, because we should probably be annexing those properties in. Right.
Yeah.
You know, bad choices made in the past shouldn't just be perpetuated.
How far? Where we stick the meter? I guess for something like.
So,
that. How close can we get it to our?
You can do a couple, where the pipe would be placed or where the meter for this property would be placed, sorry.
My concern is ongoing maintenance costs for anything.
Sure.
I don't want the city to be on the hook for anything like that, so.
So the PVC pipe that would be in place has a lifespan of about 80 to 100 years. So it's a pretty long-term thing.
Sure, until it
Um,
doesn't.
Yeah,
But I
until
mean-
it doesn't. You're absolutely right. You can do a sunken meter pit right before the railroad. If you want to end our commitment within the current existing city property lines, you can also work on a developer's agreement that would say, the city's responsible for the pipe inside the city limits. We still put a meter right at their building with the understanding that Beck's would then be responsible for any part of the water line outside of the city limits. That would be the preferred method of the water superintendent as opposed to a sunken pit meter. But those are the two options that have been discussed by our city engineers.
And how much new line then would be inside city limits?
There's a drawing.
Drawing.
It's essentially take it from the railroad. The railroad is city limits. So it's anything from, let's say, right before K&M, on the south side of 212, straight to the railroad. And then anything past the railroad would be county.
Yeah, so we're right adjacent to that.
Mhm.
And there's infrastructure there already?
No, the
It's-
infrastructure is right by the airport. We would be tapping into that line. We would be going under 212 and under the railroad.
Yeah.
There is not currently infrastructure there.
And I think there were a couple hydrants as well.
There are hydrants.
On there.
Yeah, there are hydrants there. It's an existing 10-inch water main. And the proposed in this quote that SEH put together is a additional 10-inch water main.
So I mean, that's not nothing for us to have to take care of then, because you're not on the tax roll, right? Because you're not annexed in currently. And then how do we pay for the maintenance on that? To be fair to the community.
Yeah. And that's what I think a developer agreement would come in.
Solve that.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time we see those two on the electric side, if we have to pay to run electric so many miles, where does it switch from primary to secondary? So we've seen those in other jurisdictions.
Yeah, and additionally, we can't provide you power unless we annex it, and we have power here that would be nice to provide to you.
Yeah, I do believe it is currently in another jurisdiction. There would be a payment you have to make
Yep.
in loss of revenue.
Yep.
So
1 cent a kilowatt hour.
For a period of 10 years.
Do you see any opportunity where?
yeah, I mean, I think we are open to it. If having that tax abatement conversation, I don't, an additional 105,000 a year to become a water customer, when that's the primary use is a little tough
Right.
on this project. So yeah, if there was room to wiggle on that and get that down, and look at a tax abatement, or a payment in lieu of taxes, if there's something that needs done immediately, I think that's all That's all inbounds. This was kind of our first step of getting that rolling. This was our path of least resistance to kind of start with. But yeah, I think all that is open. Unfortunately, on this project, when dealing with the state, there's been a lot of time that's elapsed on this. We would love to get started very, very quickly. So time is of the essence, if at all possible. You guys have really nice winters here, so
Yeah,
we would like to get started as quickly as possible to get some of that early foundation work done to have some sort of an opening next year. So
Yeah, and again,
Mm.
in no way is any of this bad, right?
yeah,
Thank you. We'd like
yeah,
to-
no, that's why we're here is to get that ball rolling and see what we can do. So
kind of mutually beneficial.
Yeah, something that's reasonable. You know, again, this is sort of a special situation, you know? And I think I mean, I would be willing to meet after hours to talk and like kick stuff around, cause I mean, potentially, let's say, I don't think we'll make a decision tonight, but we have another meeting in 2 weeks and maybe that's enough time.
Okay. You guys have a firm that you use as well on abatements, don't you? On cost benefit studies?
So our financial advisor is Jason Murray with DDA.
Yep.
And then Mary Ipple is our bond counsel.
Okay.
And I talked to Jason today about this project and exploring tax abatement. And so he kind of gave me the quick and dirty outline of it. But that's something that he is typically our resource for that conversation. Yep.
Okay.
He would very much be included.
Just based on timing, it has to be a public hearing for tax abatement, so that's gonna,
What's the timeline on those public hearings?
it is at least 10 days.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, right now we're finalizing the land split transaction. And then if we had a pathway to something after that, that would be very, very helpful in the timeline, even if we're not, there's some hearings and stuff to at least have a general consensus and agreement would be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, that feels doable. I mean, or it's not, right? One way or the other, but we should be able to figure out where we're at.
Yeah, and your timeline might be a little bigger because of date of publication of the newspaper.
Got it.
So,
George.
What I'd like to recommend, just to speed this along, is to give staff direction to find options for TIF to work with Jason Murray and Susie and the EDA, work with our law firm or whatever we need to do legally, just to come up with best options, have some options for us at the next meeting if possible, to review, and then just kind of go from there. I think we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but until we have experts to actually chime in on what options are available, we're just wasting time.
And we'll weigh in. TIF doesn't seem to be an option here. So tax abatement would probably be the direction that we are looking at to provide you all with options.
And Pam has
Yeah.
already informed me
Attorney tax things.
it's a possibility. It's on the table.
tax abatement.
Abatement.
Yeah.
You guys are the sole approver body on that. Is that correct?
Or the city taxes, yes.
For the city tax. Okay. Yep.
And
I believe we had a conversation with Renville County that they could be done.
county tax abatement would be done at county. This would only
And
be
it would-
looking at for
I believe you
city.
guys use the same consultant.
Oh, probably, yeah, Jason Murray.
But there would need to be an annexation before we could abate, because we can only abate property that's in our tax authority.
Yep. And
I
I
agree.
assume there's a
And I
public-
think we need to figure out some sort of annexation plan, whether it be a couple of years down the road or whatever.
Excellent.
So if we're to move forward with this, I see there's a land split, there's annexation, then a rezone, and then a tax abatement.
Yeah, so that your land, if you're subdividing your plat, right? That would be right now through the county.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that wouldn't be us,
The rezone would still be with the city.
but not unless,
So that area is actually zoned as industrial. well, it's projected. We don't have it annexed, but that area already.
So it's not in our zoning yet because it's not annexed.
Done at the time of annexation, or is that an additional step that has to happen?
I will ask Pam.
We can work on making that concurrent.
Yeah.
If, if it is if we're doing this by ordinance on your petition, you would be the one petitioning, then that makes it a little bit easier. There is a process where an ALJ has to get involved to approve it. So I think the best next step would be for us to get all those questions and really put a timeline to them of what's possible instead of just trying to spitball calendars right now. Yeah.
Well, and then we can, whatever subcommittee we form or whatever, we can get together and start meeting and hammering out what a deal looks like, what it could look like.
Yep.
And the goal would be to have, something reasonable for you, something reasonable for us.
Yep. Yeah.
Great.
Everybody good?
Awesome. Thank you.
I look
for your
forward to
time
meeting
tonight. Yeah.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Appreciate me making my drive to work.
Yeah. Well, we'll have plenty of things to do. Swing on by.
Thanks again, Brad.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move down to discussion item D, the City Hall project update from Marcus Construction. We took some bids recently and now we'll take an update.
Update, not voting on anything. Update.
Thanks.
Handouts here, I apologize, numbers, I did not bring my computer to hook up there.
I'll text you pictures, George.
That's just fine. I can listen.
My name is CJ Sanger with Marcus Construction. Just want to say thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here. As Elizabeth mentioned, this is an update from the bidding process that we have started. We had the public portion here, so any scopes of work over $170,000 had to be here and publicly opened. Overall, I'm sure you guys heard some feedback. Most of the scopes, we had quite a good showing. For the public portion, as you can see, this handout I gave you, the rough carpentry was the first one. And that was the one that we only got one bid in for. So we don't have a number to compare to there. Our goal is always 2 to 3 bids for construction phases to, have comparison and equal opportunity. The negotiated side, we are also running into just some difficulties with getting a lot of contractors to bid. We're hearing multiple times, this is a really busy summer and time of year. A lot of projects are going off. A lot of the contractors that usually bid our projects were unable to. But the negotiated side, we do continue to work with these contractors and reach out to these companies to try and get them to send us our numbers. So we are continuing to talk to them, and we do have a few more numbers, hopefully willing to come in. So that's why I couldn't give you a final number right now, but I just wanted to come here and let you guys know where we are and what we're working on. So we can go through this. Let me know if you guys have any questions. As I mentioned, the rough carpentry, metal roofing, we only had one contractor. For each one, we did have 2 contractors that were unfortunately unable to make it here due to not being able to get their own numbers in on time from their suppliers, to include the one that was previously working on your guys' insurance re-roof. And once
Is there still some opportunity for bids to come in, or is it closed?
it would have to be all publicly rebid. Yeah, it's once these ones are handed in, by that 2 o'clock time frame that we set, those are, can't really relook at those. So you can see,
Sorry, the green highlight row, is that
the green highlight row is what we're recommending right now. And then anything that has an NB by it just means that they didn't send in a bid. Everything that has under the company name is contractors that we reached out to through our bidding software. And then also we had someone from our company call each individually one, see if they can send in bids, if they plan on showing up, things like that, and just reminding them of this project to try and get the best outcome. As you can see, we reached out to a lot of companies. A lot of companies you probably recognize the names of. Yeah, and so that's the public side.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in the solicitation for the bids, was there language about being able to push off the award at all till certain events happen?
To push off the award.
Yeah, because they haven't been awarded yet, right? Yep.
Awarded.
Yeah, so was there language that the contractors would need to wait until a certain time for it, that we could push off that award?
There was no language stating that we would be awarding them directly. There is language stating that Marcus is working on your guys' behalf, but the city ultimately has the decision to make that award, and they will be the one awarding the contracts. It did not give a date, though.
That's what I was curious about.
So all the ones in greens are the ones that we're recommending, but the next meeting, June 17th, we'll have another discussion. You guys have these contracts. We'll give you all the negotiated contracts to review yourselves if you'd like. As I mentioned, these are our recommendations, but you guys are the ultimately the last decision. So
Is it all the lower price ones that have been highlighted that you've chosen and recommended?
Yep.
And you have no reason to believe that any of these contractors wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
Okay.
No, and there were no contractors that we have not previously worked with.
Okay.
The publicly opened bids, they were here as a copy, so we just need to look those over, but we, checked all the boxes when we did look
Those are
those.
for you.
Yeah, we'll take them and review them. But I don't see anything changing, but you never know. One of the things is the electrical scope. There was an alternate that we need to look at to put those numbers in here as well. And that was that generator, which will be a pretty significant number as a possible deduct in there.
Can you explain that?
The bid documents, the drawings call for alternate of eliminating the generator and understanding that you guys would install one later in a future use or just not have one. So they give an alternate number of, hey, if you do not take this generator, you can subtract 250,000 or the cost of the generator.
Can we just reuse the generator that we have?
I don't think that was called out for the electricians to look at. That would be a question for the electrical engineer to make sure that it doesn't need to be resized or anything like that for the new size of the building.
I don't know if it can support the additions, but we can certainly look into that.
I know the new generator was significant costs, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It was mentioned in the footprint when we looked at this, I think in January, February, to get the approval of the footprint. The generator cost was not part of that footprint approval number. So that has been called out before, that's not included in all of these numbers.
Okay. Well, step one for me, but reuse what we have
Yeah.
if we can. And otherwise, maybe we don't have one, right? 250,000.
Well, you are housing your police department and your fire department, two
So-
things that we certainly need to have power in the event of emergency.
Maybe if it's not big enough for some, I don't know the rules.
Yeah.
So you just say, okay, this is what we're gonna have the emergency power for then.
Yeah. I think right now it's selective of what turns on with the generator, but I can explore that more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to run through every scope of work here, but just to kind of give an examples of the first division there, if there's multiple contractors that would need to be awarded under one scope, division one, testing, you need one company, surveying, and a final clean, it just falls underneath division of where construction highlights. That's why there's 3 green suggestions in that area, but the notes column on the right side should clarify that.
So you intend to use multiple companies for that? Is that what that means?
They're bidding different scopes. So the same company that does all the testing wouldn't do the surveying.
Nice. Okay.
But they are still lumped with the other testing companies.
They're in the same category.
Yep. And we did, as mentioned before, we did take the lowest bidders in each category. if there is any discussion or notes that we have, we'll pass, but at the moment, we don't have anything to pass. I'll let you guys review this and definitely if you have any questions, but if we go to the very last page, I assume we'll have a lot more of questions and discussion topics there. It is a breakdown of the proposal of the estimate that we had sent you before. And as you can see, the increase in this cost was very significant. $700,000 is where we're sitting right now, higher than what we had originally thought. And a lot of that is due to the generator, as I mentioned. The cost went up 244,000 from what we originally bid, but that's because we didn't have a generator in there. And these drawings call for one. And like I said, the alternate, we have to look at taking that out to actually compare them apples to apples. There's plenty of notes or some additional notes on the right side, as you can see. Some of the bigger ones though, site work, $141,000. Without having the plans and knowing where the additional catch basin, the neighbor's driveway, added trenches, the additional water and everything that's needed. That's kind of what's driving that one. The concrete, we had minimal sidewalks and aprons, and these ones adding larger aprons, more sidewalks. And then as you can see, masonry, it's $25,000 less. Metals, they added metal lintels and additional bollards for above all the doorways for cutting in construction in the block. The thermal moisture protection. So this is all your roofing systems, and then all your insulation, things like that. As you can see, I have a VE option, which stands for value engineering on the bottom for thermal insulation, or for the blown insulation. That is a savings of about $16,000. And we do have one contractor who's looking at it and potentially a lot or quite a bit larger savings if we're switching to blown insulation. And then one of the roofs switched from metal to EPDM. It'd be on the far side of the engine bay. I think that's east. And then that's because of such a low slope for a metal roof. It doesn't quite meet the requirements that's needed to keep the roof height with the transition. So switch to an EPDM, which will still give you the same benefit and just a lot higher quality and better luck with not having any leaks and things like that with that low slope. Mechanical was good savings there after contractors were able to come look and see everything. And then I just added a note down here, the pending items. We have a number thrown in for window shade, so it is in there, but we don't have any quotes for that yet. We are supposed to be getting some soon. As I mentioned, the insulation, I think there's a few savings cost opportunities there that we're waiting on. And then another large item, which would be in the doors and windows. As you can see, that one's larger. The door contractor was mentioning that, that's what's specified as a higher gauge. And I assume that's because, this is a public office and everything. So it's a little bit heavier of a metal door. A lot of commercial buildings do have a lighter gauge. So those are options. And what's specified is very high-end door hardware, which is always good and useful here. But the door contractor that bid this project just said there's definitely opportunities for savings if we want to go down those avenues. So along with these, I know I threw a lot of information at you guys, but we are working through all of this right now, and we're working to get this number back to where we were kind of all planning here, and then also looking to get more solid numbers to work with the architects and everything to get those numbers on those specified door hardwares and things like that, just trying to get some better numbers from contractors and everything.
I appreciate that.
Any questions after all that? I
So,
talked quite a bit, but
Are you telling me like this is where you're at right now, but you're refining this downward?
yeah, we're continuing to work
And
on it, but
because where we were was already about as much as I was wanting to do.
I understand.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Council, can I have a couple questions? So, under the competitive bid law for anything that's over $175, $1,000, depending on what this, bid specifications said, once those bids are opened, the council is, under the statute, needs to act on either accepting or rejecting those bids. And so
Timeline.
it's, unless there is some language, which is why I asked in the bids about that there might be a delay in the award of the contract, then it's supposed to be at the next council meeting. Because the law really does default to the lowest responsible bidder for those contracts that are over 175. So unless there's a reason to delay that's been specified that the contractors know about when they're answering these bids, the council should be making that decision. And it doesn't always have to be the lowest bidder because it's the lowest responsible bidder. But it certainly shouldn't be to wait and see if we can do something to get it down, because that's the whole purpose of public bidding, is to be fair to everybody when those bids go out. So, tonight for the bids that have been open, unless there's some language that they're, when they answered those bids, that there may be a delay in the determination based for some kind of event to happen, funding from the legislature or, whatever. It depends. I haven't seen the bids, so I don't know. We should be making those determinations on either rejecting these bids if you feel like they're too high to go, but then you have to go back out and rebid, which would impact the timeline, or accepting what is the lowest responsible bid.
And just to clarify, I wasn't saying going back to those contractors. I understand the public bids cannot be touched or changed now. I'd have to.
Then why aren't we making a decision on them then?
You're right. I'd have to double check the specifications to see exactly. We didn't give a date. We just said we'd be notified after the council has time to review, I believe it says. So
Okay.
it doesn't specify.
And so here's the argument back for them is, what do they need to review? It's the lowest bid.
Well,
Is it the due diligence to make sure that what they bid covers the full scope that's needed to be covered?
That should have been when they're opening the bids, to make sure that they met the bid requirements.
Huh.
But I think that since we're sitting in this position now, if the council would at least make the determination to set a date, that is maybe the next council meeting, to make a decision on whether to accept or reject the bids that are subject to, the process, then I'm sure that would minimize any type of issue, because then at least the contractors would know the date that those bids would be being decided upon, and it would be a reasonable time. They're not having to wait forever. But, lots of times those bids are made based on supply chain, what's available at the time, what they're, all of that. So, does that make sense?
not really.
Okay.
I disagree.
So,
Makes sense to me. I agree with her.
so I'll call
As
for,
someone who's run a business, you're not gonna sit there and wait and let a potential client twiddle their thumbs and see if we can find something cheaper. The bids that they bid on should have outlined the entire scope. Their bid back to us should have shown the entire scope. Marcus reviewed them. They're recommending them. We should probably be making a decision.
So, but since you have a meeting in 2 weeks, I think if you made a motion to just clarify that the determination of accepting or rejecting the bids as presented will, I think that would be adequate to, like I said, mitigate any issues with any of these contractors. and we could prepare, then you can also have the recommendation, they need to be accepted by resolution too, so that can all be ready then for that meeting as well.
But we have an open question of whether or not we want a generator or not. So do we have to approve the low bid on the generator? We just reject it?
You can just reject it.
And then, I mean, what I'm hearing is that there's still refinement to do on, like you said, oh, there's blown insulation that this guy can do that brings down the cost. So all of a sudden now I'm not feeling like I'm in a good spot and I'm being pressured now to say, yeah,
I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just trying to tell you what the state statute says.
That's on the public opening bids, publicly open bid product, or, so these first six, not the blown insulation negotiated bid side, those are all under 175,000 and not publicly opened.
which ones are the first six?
Bid packages 1, 2, 3, through 6 there, and then the third page has negotiated bids. Which are all under that $175,000 threshold and were not publicly opened.
So the first two pages.
The first 2 pages,
That's what we have to make a decision on, is these.
or set a date 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I would say either tonight, but since clearly it was not anticipated for tonight, it would be reasonable to say at our next meeting, you'll be reviewing these and staff can make a recommendation on either accepting or rejecting those.
Call
Be-
for a motion to set the date for either accepting or rejecting the public bids portion of the City Hall Public Safety Project on our next meeting on June 17th.
I'll make that motion. Evers.
Second.
Motion's been made by Eber, seconded by Paternus to accept or deny the public bids.
Just to put it on the agenda with the recommendation from staff of accepting or denying those.
Thank you. I'll
Yeah.
rephrase that.
Yeah,
Motion's been made by Eber, seconded by Paternus, put it on the agenda for the next meeting, June 17th, to accept or deny the public bids for the City Hall Public Safety Building Project. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote via roll call. Evers,
Aye.
Baumgartner,
Aye.
Paternus,
Aye.
Hawkinson's a yes. We'll review the public bids in 2 weeks. All right.
Any further questions for me?
Thing we know of for the next 2 weeks.
well, so that was only with respect to your first page and a half. So the later pages, from what I'm hearing you say, we're under the 175,000 limit. So those are negotiated, 2 quotes on file. Unless the bids that went out said that they were going to be treated like okay. So then the state statutes just require that you use good faith efforts to keep at least 2 quotes and keep them on file for a certain amount of time. And so you have, your questions that you have about those would be, you have time for that. No pressure.
Looks like our concrete bids came in above 175 as well.
So they are 2 separate contracts for material versus labor. It's just showing a combined number. The contracts would be written separately.
That fly?
Well, then is anything over 175,000 or whatever the limit is? There's one here for material, I guess, Erickson Plumbing.
Erickson is a
Can I-
publicly open bid project.
Where's the contract? Where's the concrete?
It's on the 4th page at the top. Division 3 concrete.
Is also being broken out into site and building concrete. So which there is verbiage in there that states these are stated separate contracts, material and labor. Getting material does not guarantee you get the labor.
Okay, then that's fine.
Okay,
So what does that mean now?
It's fine how it is. It's not a public bid, it's a negotiated contract.
So now next week, do we still have to make these decisions or not?
Next week, you have to decide on the first 6, definitely.
and then the negotiated contracts. I don't wanna put those out too far, but
Oh, yeah. I hope to have everything finalized by June 17th.
so all these favorable contingencies are basically all still in play.
What do you mean a favorable contingency?
The ones where he's trying to negotiate some better pricing with
Yeah.
different materials and things.
Are we saying now though that we went from 2.8 million to 3.5? Is that what?
Currently, is the project sitting? Yes.
We have to adjust the scope, obviously.
Fuck.
It's reality. And legally, there's nothing we can do about those first 2 pages about it. Except for
And I believe when we were
You
looking at
can
the,
reject.
reject the whole
Yeah,
thing.
you can reject and start over. Yeah.
when you were looking at the site plan, again, when we, at the very beginning of this process, looking at the site plan, I believe additional costs of the project that weren't reflected in that first even 1.8 number was the generator and the site work.
Correct.
Both of those were not already included, but they are included in this number. So I understand where that's higher, but this is including things that, were outside of the footprint that was then approved. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, so in order to accept or reject these, I would need to understand what they are. Like, this is the first time I've seen these now. These numbers come in and then now it's like, oh, 2 weeks, I gotta make the call on this when I don't know what they are. And,
It's what we've been talking about for the last year and a half.
well, I understand it, the general.
You're making it,
concept,
you're making mountains out of molehills, man. You let the experts do the detail work.
Well, so the increase on the site works 141,000 versus 100,000, right? So why was it so much more?
One of the drawings that we used were a general site plan, and then once the architect had sent the surveyor out and everything, there's additional site work that was needed to additional catch basins, additional utilities, connections, things like that.
Is part of that moving the electrical that we were gonna underground anyway?
So that, the underground of the electrical, I don't think is really reflected in this scope. That's a project that the city utility is taking on.
So that's not in here at all.
No, there is some site work, especially on the east side of the building, where there are drainage issues and concerns there. That's going to have to be invested in to make sure our neighbors don't have any water issues in the backside of the property. Is that what most of this entails?
Yep.
Any other questions for CJ?
We'll chat about a generator.
I do have one question. In looking at the concrete, if it was listed as 2 separate contracts, the council should just be aware that the conversation should be around then potentially getting material and labor from different companies. Meaning you should have a conversation about whether you'd use one company for the materials and the other company for the labor. Just to be aware when you're reviewing those, if they're 2 separate contracts, and if they're not 2 separate contracts, then it should be subject to the competitive bid. Does that make sense? Okay.
So if we accept the bids, when we get to the end, can the entire project still be rejected we still have to vote on that, right? When it's all pulled together, they get all these numbers, and if it's just insanely expensive, it could still be shot down.
I mean, if you accept the bids, you're saying, you're committing that the work is moving forward.
So next week, we're committing to the work moving forward.
Yeah, because you're accepting the bids, we're then executing contracts for these people. Unless if that's a wrong take
Well,
on it.
that's-
Okay.
It basically creates a contract, you know, by accepting a bid. And again, depending on how the bid specs read, but they would have some kind of legal action if you just walked from the contract after going through this process and accepting the bids. It would be not as much as if work had started and we walk away or anything.
And we would still need to expand the fire hall and bring the
Yeah.
police station here.
Was staff aware of this?
This is the first time I have seen this spreadsheet, so I didn't understand how the numbers had jumped. We were at the bid opening for the first 6.
Remember that was on Thursday?
That was on Thursday. So we were at the bid opening for the
Numbers
first
haven't been
6.
floating around for weeks or anything.
Yeah, just disappointed the number is so high. So much more than what was the goal.
That was my reaction as well, but hopefully with these negotiating contracts, we can bring it a little closer.
Yeah.
Any other questions for CJ? I appreciate it. Thanks for
Mayor, thank you, council.
Okay, move on to discussion item E, utility update.
Let me just pull out our memo. So this is to provide,
Gentlemen.
thank you. This is to provide you all with an update to the memo you received in early March, where our utility account manager came to council to discuss the EAC fuel adjustment factor issue, where we realized we were charging under an EAC category, as well as we were charging under a fuel adjustment factor category where we should have just been charging under one category. This is where we pass along to the customer the costs of creating electricity, typically under natural gas. So when we discovered this charge, city staff took this opportunity to take a full audit of our utilities to make sure that there was no other corrections that needed to be made. Unfortunately, during this internal review, we discovered kind of 3 main billing issues. So January 1st in 2023, those bills were still using some of the 2022 rates, even though the resolution to 2022-89, which you all passed August 1st of 2022, stated that the 2023 rates should have appeared on that January 1st, 2023 bill. So from February through October of 2023, the bills were still using some of the 2022 rates, with the exception, so the only rates that were updated to 2023 were the base rates for stormwater, water, and electric. It does appear that in the process of correcting the rates to the 2023 rates for the November 1st bill, the stormwater base rate was inadvertently changed back to the 2022 rate. So we've been working really hard. Countless of hours have been spent by staff to rectify these issues. We've pulled numerous reports for all of these timeframes. So we're finally at the place where we can determine on each account where credits need to be issued or where some debits need to be issued. We have been working with our city attorney to understand what we have to do pursuant to Minnesota Administrative Rule 7820.3800, electric utility billing, to remedy this problem. And then we'll also be working with Tyler Technologies, who works with our Encode, which is our billing system, to figure out how to put these on each account. We'll be sending out communications to the account holders, in addition to people who are no longer customers with our utility, letting them know of this issue and giving them the appropriate amount of time to respond. We're also working on updating our internal review procedures to ensure accuracy in our utility billing moving forward.
You have any idea what the average impact would be or median impact or anything like that?
So, yeah, mostly if you are a residential customer, you will probably end up owing the city somewhere between 10, maybe $30 for the 2023 adjustment. There are, of course, some outliers, but that's a typical residential overage. For businesses and commercial properties that really use a lot of electricity, because there was overcharges in 2 areas of electrical usage. The majority of those higher electric users will be issued credits. So, but yeah, we're working for our communication and implementing that on the upcoming utility bills. Any
Thank
questions?
you, Elizabeth. Yeah, any
Okay.
questions from council at this point?
We're doing the correct billing now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good.
I checked the bill calc for this month's bills myself. Yes. That's part of those internal procedures that we're implementing.
So from here on out, only good news.
Yep.
Move to staff reports.
Yes, so we are looking at removing a layer of bureaucracy by getting rid of the city food truck permits. So this is something, it's in our fine and fee schedule, but there's no specific city code that says we have to issue permits for food trucks. Food trucks already have to, comply with all relevant health and safety regulations, state licensing, zoning laws, local ordinances. This is kind of removing a bureaucratic procedure to that. It was also very spotty at best. You got some food trucks who came into the city who might register for a food permit, but then it's a one-time fee plus $1 every time they're back in the city. It's difficult to enforce. It's taking up a lot of unnecessary staff time. And we want to encourage as many food trucks as possible to come to our city to provide us with a variety of dining options to kind of increase the local cuisine diversity. So that's why we are looking at this policy change, and staff is wholeheartedly supportive.
Good government.
So it's the update I can provide.
Any other staff reports?
I have one.
Oh, whoa.
I had to think for a minute there. Wow, that's me. Okay, I just wanted to get a brief update on the legislative session. So it ended a couple weeks ago and they were busy right at the last minutes. And so I wanted to make council aware, we're getting together, we being our office, getting together more of a summary for us to send out to our cities. But the one thing is that we as a city decided not to put a moratorium on the lower level cannabis products or the higher level cannabis. And that's fine, city council decision. I did want to make you aware that even though the Office of Cannabis Management isn't up and operating and they don't have their licensing structure set up, the legislature said that even before they get their licensing structure set up, they can start issuing what they're calling preliminary licenses that are effective for 18 months. And it allows cannabis businesses to do all their legwork before. And so that when the licensing structure actually goes in place, then basically it's easy for them to open their doors. They created 2 buckets of types of applicants. One is the social equity applicant, which has a whole different, just a very specific definition in the statute. And those can start doing their applications for these preliminary licenses by on or after July, like 24th, 2024. So this July. And then with 14 days notice, the Office of Cannabis Management can let other applicants start doing that. So we don't really have a timeline for when that is. So if I just want to make sure that check in with council and make sure you still do not want a moratorium in place, because there is the possibility that you could have a cannabis retailer or a cannabis, other type of cannabis business. So that includes cultivators, manufacturers, distributors, all that, who would apply for one of the pre-license, preliminary licenses.
Council care to take any action based off of this new information? Doesn't look like a lot of.
Okay, I just
appetite.
wanted to make sure. And so that makes my job easier for you. So there you go. The other thing is there's changes. We'll work with staff on the ESS, T or L, whichever acronym you want. It's that, earned safe and sick leave. And so there's been some changes with respect to how to count that as far as hours.
Great.
So we'll have to work with staff on that on our personnel policies. And then with respect to, and I was just gonna look for rental licensing.
Okay.
As far as the city and their rental licenses.
Alright.
I haven't been involved in any. Do we have a rental license process?
I think we
don't
do.
think we
Nope.
do. I haven't been involved in anything.
What's it was?
So, if there's rental properties in residential or Airbnbs or that kind of stuff, some cities have rental. There's just been a change that that in a permitted use in residential areas for 6 or under, of residential programs are automatic permitted use and can't be regulated by rental licenses anymore. So I just wanted to make sure that wasn't an issue here. So, Yep.
We have a very thriving Airbnb economy here. I don't know what you're talking.
well, and also rental properties too. Some cities have a certain percentage of rental properties per block or that kind of thing. So,
And I think that that transportation bill, where small cities were gonna get a portion of sales tax from auto parts passed.
I don't know.
that I do not know. I'd
That
have to
didn't
check
come
for you.
across my legislative update
But I will
today
put it
from
on my
League of
list.
Minnesota Cities. Good question.
I'll check. And when we do our update, I'll make sure it's included.
Okay.
So.
I don't think we'll be getting a whole lot this time around, but moving forward, hopefully it's some good revenue for us to plan around our.
Oh, and
transportation.
just as another note on cannabis, because I know you had talked about it briefly, for a municipal dispensary. Those are to be automatically granted by the Office of Cannabis Management. So it's a shall, they switch the language to shall. So if there is a application for a municipal dispensary, then the Office of Cannabis Management shall issue that license. If the city ever decided to put in a limit of number of licenses in place for the city, it does not count against that. So there's no way to say we're the only ones, basically. So
What was the word before it was shall?
may.
Oh.
So,
Shall, you have to
so
just
before
make it
you went,
choice.
no, so before you'd go into the normal pool and it would count against other licenses. And so they made it so that it doesn't count against other licenses, but if they get an application, then this municipality gets it. So a municipality can't say, yeah, we're gonna have one retail license and it's gonna be us. That's what they're avoiding. So.
Apparently I have a pool update this year.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. What do you got?
Wonderful. All right, we're gonna go through the abridged version of this. Tracy was able to complete a lifeguarding class and she got 3 new lifeguards out of the deal with a couple other people also completing the course. And she had some renewals as well. She's got 50 kids signed up for session 1 of swimming lessons, which started today apparently. The YMCA is picked out sometimes to come do swimming. More to come. There's free busing to some open swims on Tuesday and Thursdays during the month of June. No,
Boilers are back on, so the heat is up in the pool, which is exciting.
I didn't know it was up. No one's been talking to me about that. And I normally hear the complaints on that one.
Well, the school was closed because of
Oh, yeah.
Delicious.
Oh, yeah.
That
They had a water main
impacts the
break.
pool as well.
They're gonna have another lifeguarding class in July, hopefully. They've have events for the migrant program, come rent the space out again, which is awesome. And he's gonna try doing some preschool water safety stuff. There might be extra days that they're closed in July because they're being short-staffed. We'll see.
Is there any update on the administration that like tracking data, people, you know,
We're still working on that for her numbers for the summer.
Yeah, it's a work in progress getting that type of reporting
yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Again,
Are we advertising for people to come use the pool too? Anyone know?
I've seen a few.
Yeah, I've seen some on her Facebook. We've been pushing it out on our city website and things like that as well.
Yeah.
I'll be able to tell you firsthand, I'm taking my daughter to swimming lessons tomorrow night. There you go.
So the pool isn't too cold for you.
Taking
76.
people?
I believe so.
Oh, they're on vacation now anyway.
Oh, okay.
Anyway. Okay.
I have a notice as well.
Oh, we do have a notice. Okay.
Just as a notice, City Hall staff, we are in website training this Wednesday at 10 a.m. For the city's new website. We're learning how to edit it with a hopeful cyber unveiling in July.
Hmm,
Just as an FYI.
wonderful.
That's all I got.
All right. Looks like that's the end of our business for tonight. I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Patternus, seconded by Baumgartner to adjourn. We will adjourn via roll call vote. Baumgartner.
Here. Or aye.
Aye.
Ever.
Hey,
I'm a aye. Patternus.
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.